When you see what's going on in the Middle East, you might wonder, gee, could we end up with gas lines or gas shortages like we saw back in the 70s? I'm Bob Sellers. I've covered business and politics for over 30 years. Let me give you my 2 minute take. First of all, the futures markets are telling us that this is going to be a short lived thing and that we will see higher prices in the short term, but long term, we'll get back closer to where we were before. They could be completely wrong. That's why there's a buyer and a seller in every transaction. But there's no question that there's a big difference between today and the 70s on a couple counts. One is back then when OPEC cut off supply in the early 70s and then the late 70s, it had a big impact. Partially because we had all these muscle cars and we didn't produce enough. We had to import about half of the amount of oil that we used on a daily basis. So it mattered when they cut off supply. That's why a lot of us can remember, at least I remember in the late 70s, sitting in my muscle car, my Pontiac Grand Prix V8 engine that got about 9 miles to the gallon. You had to match up your license plate, even or odd day, to get your allocation of gas. And that's the way it worked. That's the way they controlled some of the demand. There was another thing that the government did, and that is price controls. Yes, our own US government under a Republican and then a Democratic president, they imposed price controls to keep the oil companies from making too much money. But Milton Friedman, the conservative economist, said, well, when you do that, you take away the incentive for them to go find more oil, to drill for it, to pump it, to refine it, and then get it to the gas pump to meet demand. So we finally got through that. Fast forward to today, we actually are net exporters of oil. However, this is misunderstood by a lot of people. Some of the oil we produce, we don't use, we don't refine, so we export that, and we have to import between 20 and 30% of what we use. And a lot of that comes from Canada, our 51st state. We want to be good to them. So we do depend on a global market, and that's why the prices will have an impact immediately at the gas pump. But we probably aren't going to see any shortages. That could all change depending on what goes on in the Middle East. But if you like what you heard, please follow. Have a great day.